Hello, everybody. I just dropped my phone on my foot and it hurt so flippin' bad. It was horrible. I think I broke a few of my toes and my foot is gonna turn purple. I thought I'd do a book review video because I haven't done one in a while for Book Suggestion Saturday. I read a lot of books this month because I was trying to do the library summer reading challenge where you have to read 4 books within a certain time period. And then I just got on like a roll of reading and I was just like really into it all of a sudden. So I was just going through books like crazy. Of course, none of them were like super thick books because that would have taken me a long time, but they were a lot of kind of thin books. But I thought I'd share with you all the books that I read this month, June, this past month. First off, this book I started reading probably in May. Yeah, I started reading it in May, but I finished it in June. On June 8th is when I finished it. Biography of Chuck Norris, called Against All Odds, My Story. That's a picture of him when he was a little boy. Pretty cute. I grew up watching Walker, Texas Ranger. I was a big fan of that. We watched it every week on the weekends, like on Saturday nights. Gather around the family, watch Walker, Texas Ranger. So that's mostly what I know him from. He always seemed like a really nice, kind, friendly, like good morals, type of guy, So I liked him. And I thought this book was really good. It's telling his life story, kind of, in chronological order. Anyways, I like biographies where they don't jump around like crazy and don't really give good time periods or whatever. I like it when they start from like their earliest memories, how they were born, through their childhood, up into their teen years, up until, their first loves and relationships and getting married and having kids and up until now. I like books like that where it tells their full life story pretty much and goes in the right order from birth till present time. And that's what this book does for the most part. There's a couple of little skip arounds, but for the most part it was in order. And there's a chunk of pictures in the middle of the book. Glassy colored pictures. Well, some of them are black and white, I guess, but they're still glossy. I learned some things I didn't really know. I did know that he was born in Oklahoma, but I didn't know how long he lived in Oklahoma, where all he lived in Oklahoma. He kind of bounced back and forth between California and Oklahoma and stuff like that, which was interesting. He was born like a preemie. He was struggling to live when he was born. And then he became this crazy, fighter, strong, competition winning fighter that fought against Bruce Lee and stuff like that. And became, a movie star, a TV star. It tells about how he started the whole total gym thing and marriages and children, and it was interesting. I didn't know he had twins. He has twin children. I liked it. I'd recommend it. I bought it at a used bookstore for $5.95. Second, I wanted to read just a short little book that was on my bookshelf, and it's been sitting there for a while. It's a book of poems called Funeral for a Womb. And I bought it off Amazon, and the reason I got it was because A girl I know, I used to work with her, named Frosty Winery, or Winery, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. She wrote one of the poems in the book, and she had posted it on her Facebook page saying if anyone wanted to check it out, it was available on Amazon. And I was like, heck yeah. And she had another book of poems that she had solely written herself called Saltwater Nights that was also available on Amazon. So I went ahead and bought both of them, but I haven't read the other one yet. But these are all poems about endometriosis, which I did not know anything about, really. And basically, it's like women that suffer from really bad menstrual cycles, really bad abdominal pains and cramps, and like lots of pain down there. Pain when they're having sex. They deal with infertility issues. It can cause depression because it's so horrible. You have to deal with it all the time. And from the outside, you look fine. So people just think you're being a baby. You're being a hypochondriac. Doctors don't diagnose it like they should. It gets misdiagnosed like crazy. They just say, oh, you have depression. Oh, you're bipolar. Oh, you just are, overreacting. You're a hypochondriac. This, that, and the other. And it's pretty severe. So I didn't know anything really about this. So I'm glad I read this book so I could learn more about it, so I could be more sensitive to it. If I have a friend or family member that says they have endometriosis, I know that it's a serious thing, Some of these poems were really powerful, describing the torment that they've gone through, and having to deal with doctors and the misdiagnosis, and family members and friends or boyfriends or husbands that acted like it wasn't a big deal and things like that. So I read that in one sitting. I just sat down. I was engrossed, and I read the whole thing in one sitting, in one day, the same day that I finished the Chuck Norris biography. Then I picked up this book, and it took me a couple of days. Unsolved Serial Killers, Volume 1. There's a few different volumes. I don't know how many. I got it off of Amazon. I'm always interested in reading about crime cases, murder cases, serial killers, unsolved cases or solved cases, and real. I like reading fiction, but also nonfiction is very interesting because it's real. It really happened. And especially the unsolved ones, because that means that killer is probably still out there somewhere and it was never caught. And that's creepy. But this was very interesting. 10 frightening true crime cases of unidentified serial killers. The ones you've never heard of. Now, I had heard of some of these because I watch a lot of YouTube videos about serial killers and things. I read a lot about serial killers. And follow movies and TV shows and things like that are based off of it. So I had heard of a couple of these, but for the most part, they were ones I hadn't really heard about. The one that was most familiar to me was the Texas Killing Fields. I'd heard of because there's a movie based off of that stars Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who's one of my fave actors. He plays Negan in The Walking Dead. He's in that movie. I have not seen the movie, but it was on my list of movies I want to watch. So I had heard of that, but I didn't know anything about it. So that was cool, interesting to read about. It's not cool, exactly. Some innocent women being killed and left for dead in Texas fields, but it's interesting. I feel like I read these to like get survival tips or something. Like, I think that's why women are often interested in, like, you know, murder cases, rape cases, abduction cases, things like that, because they're trying to prepare themselves in case anything happened to them. It's like a survival guide in a way. Like, oh, she did that wrong. Oh, I'm not going to do that. Nope, don't do that. Same with horror movies. And it's just crazy, like the psychology of it. Like, how can a human be that messed up that they would do that, you know? There's a few pictures mixed in, but they don't really do much for the it's just like a picture of fire, a picture of a dark shadowed figure, like, or landscape or something, some buildings. It's not like pictures that of like the victims or the killer or anything like that kind of pertains to the story. It's just kind of boring. It's like a bridge. But yeah, I definitely want to check out some more of the volumes of these books. Next we have Tethered by Bryce Gibson. He's kind of like this, I don't know if he's self-published necessarily, but he kind of like promotes his own books. Like he's a struggling author, kind of. He lives in South Carolina. With his wife and their dog. You can go to BryceGibsonWriter.com. His books started popping up on my Facebook page feed. Like, buy 3 books for, you know, like book bundles and things. He's got a handful of books, and they're all kind of like horror, thriller type books. I bought a set of like 3 or 4 of his books. They're not bad priced. It's like $20 to $30 or something for like 3 books or 4 books. They're kind of short, which I like. The first book I read of his was called Perennials, and it was about they're fiction books, and it was about a serial killer who was killing people with like plant names, flower names, like rose bush or lily something. The main character was named Dusty Miller, and I can't remember the girl's name. It was some weird flower name that I don't know. I'd never heard of before. And I liked that book. So I decided to go ahead and read a second one of his books, Tethered. I thought it might be kind of a Cujo-esque book, like Stephen King, you know, a dog that's... I've never read Cujo either, or seen the movies, but I've just heard it referenced a million times when I was growing up as a kid. So I know Cujo was like a crazy dog, like an attack dog. If there was ever like a mean dog around when I was a kid, my dad would be like, oh, he's like Cujo, you know. But this dog kind of looks cute and just like sad and mopey, if you ask me. I think this is the main character's dog. I don't know if it's supposed to be like a bad dog. I think it's just his, because it looks like a black lab. So I think this is actually a nice dog on the cover. Or is it? Or is it? Anyways. I think I liked Perennials a little bit more than this one, but I still liked it. It was a good book. It's about a teenage boy. He's 19, named Aiken Pine. He lives with his girlfriend or wife. I'm not sure if they're married or not. I think they might be engaged or something. I can't remember. and she has a baby from a previous relationship, but he's kind of taken over, acting like the dad of the baby and kind of taking care of it. He's from a small southern town where people are always trying to like get out of there, escape from their small town. And he has a younger sister who's in high school. She's a cheerleader. She used to be not very popular, but now she got all popular being a cheerleader. And she was attacked by a dog randomly, and it gave her a little scar on her cheek. But he repeatedly says it's not that bad. It's not like a really bad scar on her face or anything. It's just a little bitty scar that she can cover up with makeup. It's not that bad. And then she gets into a fight with these other cheerleader girls that she's friends with. They're like the popular girls' little clique that they're in. And she ends up stabbing a girl. They get into a big fight and she stabs this girl. And she gets put into like a facility, like a mental facility, mental health facility. And so he kind of goes back home to help the family out with what's going on, the family drama that's happening. And he keeps running into trouble with dogs and stuff. And it seems like dogs are trying to attack him, like these random dogs in town. And it's like somebody's out to get him. And it's like, is it paranormal? Is it something weird going on with the dogs? Is it like rabies or something weird going on? Is there somebody behind it, and why? So it's just kind of a mystery, like a mystery as to why all this weird, freaky stuff is happening around him. Next, we got this book, which I had started reading previously a long time ago. And I got really bored with it and I stopped reading. It was kind of hard to get through. It was really just kind of boring. I always found myself like falling asleep while I was trying to read it. It's filled with lots of interesting facts and stuff like that. It's just hard to just sit there and read. It's just like it's like a listed fact after another. And it's not like reading a story or something. It's just like fact, 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 fact. It's just like a list of facts about presidents of the United States. Which president killed a man? It's just interesting facts about all of the presidents of the United States. Of course, this is kind of an old book, so it doesn't include Joe Biden or Donald Trump. I'm not even sure if it includes Obama or not. I might stop at George H.W. Bush. I don't remember if it has Obama in there or not. But it's just like random facts. They're kind of put into categories. It also talks about the president's wives a little bit. There's like a section about that. Interesting facts about the president's wives. First ladies. There's little drawings and sketches in there. So I was like, I need to go ahead and finish this book up. So I just powered through it and read the rest of it. One fact after the other. So I'd recommend it as like just a book to keep around and flip it open, at a party or something. Say, hey, did you hear about this? Which first lady was once national president of the Girl Scouts? Lou the Leader, one of the most learned of our first ladies, was Lou Hoover, a graduate of Stanford. Hoover was a scholar in Latin and proficient in French, as well as Mandarin Chinese. She served as president of the Girl Scouts while her husband was Secretary of Commerce under Harding and Coolidge. Then I read this book, which I started reading a long time ago, but I didn't finish it because I just, for some reason, didn't get that into it. Caddie Woodlawn. I'm a big fan of like Little House on the Prairie and Anne of Green Gables and those type of books set in that type of time period. I think Anne of Green Gables might be a little bit later than Little House on the Prairie. I don't know, because it's set in Canada, so I don't really know. Anyways, Caddy Woodlawn is kind of in the same type of area as that. I had never heard of it before, but it's a classic apparently. And I just came across it one day online looking at books and stuff. And I read reviews about it, and some people were comparing it to Little House on the Prairie. And some people were saying, a lot of people, say they loved Little House on the Prairie when they were a kid, reading those books. But I actually preferred the Caddy Woodlawn books. There's several of them, to the Little House on the Prairie books. I was like, oh, really? And so a lot of people were raving about it. I thought, well, since I love Little House on the Prairie so much, maybe I'll love this one. And it's about a redheaded little girl, which I have a redheaded little girl, and I'm partial to redheads. It's about a whole family of children that all have red hair. They live up in Wisconsin, and here's their house. And it's just about their lives up there and little shenanigans that the kids get into, and close calls, dangerous things like fires or people, about to get hurt or by something or the other, or, going through difficulties like sicknesses or struggling, to put food on the table or whatever the case may be. Going to school. Here's a picture of Caddy fighting with a boy at school, and the teacher's like, ah! One-room schoolhouse, going to church, that type of thing. But I just didn't get into it as much as Little House on the Prairie, so I read like half of it and sat it down and didn't pick it back up again for a long time. And it's like, I need to finish that book, so I picked it up and finished it. And I like it. In general, I do like it. It's a good book. I don't beloved it as much as Little House of the Prairie or Anne of Green Gables. But I still think it's a good book. I still would recommend it. And I think some people would like it even better than those other books. But I just didn't love it as much. Maybe because I didn't read it as a child. I don't know. But I still liked it. I just didn't get as into it as I thought I would. And this book I bought off Amazon on a whim. I wanted to read a graphic novel, and I've never finished a graphic novel. I've kind of dabbled in them and started them, but I've never finished one. So I've always wanted to have a good graphic novel. So I just saw this one. I thought I liked the cover art. I liked the title, The Princess and the Grilled Cheese Sandwich.
That's silly.
We had grilled cheese sandwiches today, didn't we, Em?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we had them for lunch. Yeah. And I really liked it. It has really, pictures throughout, as graphic novels do, which I like. I read it in one sitting. I just sat down and I was engrossed in it, and I finished the whole thing, which I've never done with a graphic novel. It's always been hard for me to get through. So this book, I didn't know anything about it, really. I just thought the title looked funny. I liked the cover, so it intrigued me. So I got it. And the book is about this girl here, her father is a count, and he's trying to force her to get married. And she keeps turning down all these suitors. See? And he's like, but you got to get married. And she's like, but father, I don't like any of these men, and to be honest, I don't even like men even. And he's like, yeah, I know this. Like, I pretty much figure that you don't like men. It's kind of obvious. So she's like, why are you trying to force me to get married? And he says that he's dying, and that if he dies, because she's a woman, he can't pass down his house, his money, his title, all that type of stuff down to her because of her being a girl. But if she's married, it can go down to her husband, and so she'll still have a place to live and everything and be provided for. She's like, but I can't do that. I can't just force myself to marry some guy I won't love, I won't want to be with him because I like girls. And he's like, okay, I get it. We can come up with a backup plan. Instead, how about you dress like a man and pretend to be my son instead, and then you can have everything. So that's what they decide to do. She dresses up like a man, pretends to be his son. She moves away. This is a fairy tale fictional world, Everybody has like cheese names. Like the princess, her name is Brie. And this is Lady Camembert, which I believe is a type of cheese. Camembert. All the characters have like cheese names, and they all eat cheesy foods in the kingdom. It's like an alternate reality where everything's all cheesy. And so she moves to a different kingdom that's kind of far away, so people won't recognize her, and dresses like a man, and she becomes friends with the Princess Brie, and they talk about fashion, and they're doing fashion shows and parties and things, and teaming up with fashion designers. And the fashion designer does kind of recognize she worked with her father, so she knew that the father only had a daughter, so she knows that this is his daughter dressed up like a guy. So she kind of knows about it, but she doesn't really care. The princess has a crush on her, but she thinks she's a guy. She has a crush on her, but doesn't want to come out that, she's a guy, because technically I think she could have her killed or something by impersonating a guy like that. So it's, all building up to the final reveals of the princess finding out that her crush, her best friend, is actually a girl in guy's clothing. And she at first just kind of closes her out, like just blocks her out, doesn't want to be friends anymore, doesn't want to talk or hang out anymore. But then she realizes that she actually does care about her, and it's just a sweet little love story, and I really liked it. And last, I read this book, A Book of Book Lists, and it was kind of like the President book. It was kind of boring and hard to get through. It's an okay book to just thumb through, and get some cool facts, or just like kind of look at, but not to just sit there and read like it's a story. Some parts were interesting, and some parts I found to be really boring. It's lists of books, like different famous people's favorite books, like David Bowie's list of books in his library talks about like books that are on the bookshelves in the TV show The Big Bang Theory, like in Sheldon and Leonard's apartment. There's bookshelves in the background. There's all kinds of books in them, and people have zoomed in, or people on the, the staff, that the, what you call it, the decorating staff, whatever, that come up with it. The props people have listed out what books are on the bookshelves. They're all about science type of stuff. So that was kind of boring to read about. All the books that are like mentioned in the TV show Friends, the books that are on the bookshelf in the movie Interstellar and stuff like that, I found to be interesting. But like books people like to read in prison, books that Charles Darwin wanted to read, or different presidents, books that people leave in hotel rooms the most, which is like 50 Shades of Grey, books mentioned in the movie Good Will Hunting, stuff like that. So it was interesting to read, but it's not like a storybook that you can read for fun. It can be kind of tedious and boring to get through, but still, I liked it. I'd recommend it. It's actually like a British book. I had a hard time finding it. I had to order it online, and it had to be shipped from like overseas, so the shipping was kind of hefty. The British Library, but it did talk about American stuff in there too. So that's all the books I read this month, not including kids books, because I read tons of kids books. Tons. This would be like a 5-hour long video if I told you about all the kids books I read. And most of them I've returned back to the library, so I wouldn't have the physical copy with me or anything. I just have to tell you about it. But yeah, lots of kids books all the time. And usually I don't have time to read books for me because I'm reading so many kids books. But whatever. I love kids books too. And I've read some good ones this year. Or this month even. Well, that was Book Suggestion Saturday. Leave comments down below. Like, subscribe. Have a nice day. Bye.